Hey there. I'm going to talk a little bit about when my dad passed away. It was in 2003, and of course, my dad was quite a character. He, being born in 1917, dropping out of school to become to be from being a medical doctor to being a Jehovah's Witness, coal porter, full-time minister. Ended up having a family of 5 kids. Being in the elder arrangement from the very, very beginning. And so he had quite a legacy with a lot of people in the Jehovah's Witness organization. So much that after he passed, the elders in the congregation kept his hat in the elders' room. There were some elders in that hall that had grown up with my dad as kind of a fill-in father for them. That didn't settle well with me, going through the things that I went through as a teenager. And if you've watched previous sessions on my channel, you know what I'm referring to. There were times that I really needed a daddy, and I didn't get to have one, and I went looking for love. And same with my sister. She deserved to have a very good and supportive dad, and she didn't always have that. My younger brother, he had no interest in being a ministerial servant or a regular pioneer or an elder. And so, he and my dad had a different relationship than my dad had with the older 2 boys. So when they grew up and they did that, I thought that was really weird. Like, really weird. Because they kind of made it a shrine to Maxie. So then my mom was now a widow, and I saw my parents like every day, all the time. And when my dad was sick, I was right there with him a lot more. Like if they called in the middle of the night and he had fallen on the ground, I was the one that would show up and, help my mom out. And so when my dad died, my older 2 brothers, who did not see them all the time, came in to help my mom. And the way that they helped my mom was putting all of my dad's things in garbage bags. My dad wasn't even in the ground yet. And they came in and took all of the things out of his drawers. They took all of his clothes off of hangers. My sister was there. My sister came from Florida, and she was there too, and it was so disturbing to us. And we told them, stop this. And they fought us on that. And that is a thing that I feel some strong emotions about still. And I need to work through this. But I wasn't done smelling my dad when I went to their house. I was not able to see my dad, but I couldn't also see his things because they had, put all of his things away. And my dad always smelled like sawdust. And I love the smell of sawdust. He was a hard worker. And so I have a lot of feelings about that. So my poor mom was now a widow, and I tried to spend more time with her. One of my brothers was very attentive to her and called her regularly, came to see her regularly. But my family ended up moving, my little family of 2 kids and my husband. We ended up moving to Dallas, and I know that broke her heart, but that was something that I had to do for myself because I wanted to finish midwifery school, and that's where my school was. That's where my preceptor was. And so my husband at that time had a job with Cisco Systems, and we moved to Dallas, and just down the street from Ralph and Cindy, and he lost his job. He was always losing his job because he was a mouth. He was a right fighter, and anyway, he ended up losing that really good job at Cisco Systems, which was terrible because we had pretty good insurance through them. And we needed good insurance because he was a diabetic. And diabetics are not always compliant with their diet and with their medications. And so he had a lot of health issues. And one time he was seeing a Jehovah's Witness elder who was also a naturopath for some of his problems. And he told my husband that he should have a colonic. And so we went in and we got him a colonic. And while we were in there, my husband had this pain in his leg. And the woman who was doing the colonic was a massage therapist. And she said, "Oh, I can help you with that pain in your leg." And she began to do this deep tissue massage. And Ralph was a big guy. I mean, he was 6'7", and he started crying. And she was saying, "You just have to breathe through it," and everything. And we figured something was really wrong. Well, a week later, he ended up in the hospital with a ruptured, there was a big pus pocket in his leg, and they had to drain it, and he had to be on, IV antibiotics, and he had to get home health. I mean, all kinds of like really crazy stuff. So, when he finally got well, he got a contract job with a company that sent him to Chicago. And on that trip to Chicago, he got off the plane and went and got on like the little buses that take you to your airport. And when he lifted up that leg to step onto the bus, his leg cramped up and it froze. And apparently, he had like an attack. And people had to help him get back down off of the bus and get him a wheelchair. And he flew home. And so we tried to get him in to the doctor's office to see what was going on with that leg. And he got so sick, like so sick. And he had flu symptoms and fever. And he got like really, really, really sick, to the scary kind of sick. And I knew that we needed to get him to a hospital to be seen. And his dad came down, and we called an ambulance to take him to the hospital. And they tested like all of his vital signs, and they said, "Well, his vital signs are normal, so we can take him to the hospital, but this is not going to be covered by insurance, and this is going to be like probably $5,000 or $6,000. Why don't we help you to your car?" And so I was really grateful for those paramedics. Paramedics are some of the nicest people on earth. I've always thought that. So I took him to the ER, and during the time that we were there, they started running labs on him, and they started getting really super unusual numbers. And his fever was going higher and higher and higher. And by that evening, we had a doctor who came into his room. They admitted him, and the doctor came into his room and said, "This looks really bad. Like we don't know what's going on, but his numbers are off the charts." And he, Ralph being an uncompliant diabetic, his blood sugars would never register on just the little glucometers. So his blood sugars were off the charts too. And within 24 hours, he was in a coma. And he was in that coma for 19 days. And that was a really hard time for me and for my kids because, he was a hard man to be married to. He was a hard man for that to be your dad. But he also had some qualities that were sweet, I wouldn't have married him if there hadn't been something about him that was charming. Anyway, his family gathered around, the congregation gathered around. That, we could only go in every few hours to see him, and he was not responsive. His little brother, remember Matthew, who they had thrown out when he was 14, and he had, had his little family. He came in to see his brother, and he went outside that day and he prayed to Jehovah. And he said, Jehovah, if you save my brother, I will come back to you and I will serve you for the rest of my life. And a few little things, actually they turned out to be really big things, happened during those 19 days. The doula community was extremely supportive of me. Back then we didn't have like Facebook or social media. I think there was, what was the thing before Facebook?
MySpace.
I can't even remember. But we did have a Yahoo group of our Dallas Doula Network on the Yahoo group. And there was a little doula on there, and she had just had a baby. But she was so kind. And she said to me, I have something to bring you, because I was staying up there night and day. And she said, I have something to bring you, and I wanted to drop this off. Well, finally I don't even know what day this was. But there was a day that I had a few minutes and a car, and I thought, I'm going to go home and I'm going to get a shower and I'm going to take a nap in my own bed, because I was staying up there all the time. And so while I was driving up there, this little girl, she got my phone number and she called me and she said, Brenda, I'm here at the hospital and I can't find you. And she had her little 2-week-old baby in a little ring sling, and she had brought me a basket of goodies. She had brought me candy bars, and she had brought me quarters for the payphone. She had brought me Dr. Peppers. She had bought me crackers. She had bought me teas. She had bought me all these little things just to sustain me day and night, the vigil at the bedside of my sick husband that we didn't know if he was going to make it or not. And her name was Christine. And we talked on the phone as I drove to our little house. And then I had a shower, and I called her later on, and she talked to me a lot during that week, but we hadn't ever met face to face. But she became a very important person in my life. And she was there for me when the chips were down. She was not a Jehovah's Witness. She was the most opposite thing of a Jehovah's Witness you could be. But I'll always appreciate that loving kindness that she really did show me. Well, Ralph ended up recovering, and it was a long road. I had to end up, once he finally got out of the hospital, which was many, many weeks, and because we were no longer covered by his insurance from his job at Cisco Systems, I had to figure out how we were going to pay this ginormous hospital bill. So I had to drop out of midwifery school. And I had one module to go, y'all. I only had my newborn module, and then I would have compiled all of my paperwork, and I would have been able to apply to sit for the NARM exam. But I didn't get to do that. So I think that's all I'm going to tell you today about this. But I just, this was a pivotal moment in my life and in the lives of my children, and in a relationship that would sustain me for the next 15 years. And that would be very important to my survival. And then it would have an awful lot to do with my desire to die. So I hope you'll tune back in for more of Mildred Willow. And thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. You guys, I've got a third of the amount of subscribers that I need on my channel. So anything that you can do to help me out so I can continue to tell my story and to help you tell yours, please like and subscribe and hit the little bell so you'll be notified when there's a new video. Love to you.